Okay, so I've got the IAT wired up here. So it went from here to our GM connector here. We've got the coil mostly wrapped up. So here's the ground for this side. Here's the ground for the opposing side. So what's left here is these two connectors. So these connectors here went to the ignition control module. And so if you guys have ever done like, the 2J or any early Nissan stuff, you know that they had like the PTU igniter, same thing, different name. So the NSX is no exception to that. So it went in between here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to cut these wires and then attach them to here. According to the diagram, they're colored the same. So white black goes to white black, white red goes to white red, etc., etc. So the only wire that I'm not sure of is there's two additional wires in here that are ground. I don't know if they need to be retained or not. So I'm just gonna cut the ends off, attach them together, and then I'll just go ahead and I'll check the ground wire to see how this is all grounded and see if it's actually required or not. Here's the NSX intake manifold removed. We're gonna work on removing this plate right here. There's a bunch of butterflies inside of this. SOS has a delete plate to get rid of all this. So we're gonna take this all out and then just get it ready. Here's the plate removed. According to SOS, these screws like to come loose and then it'll fall into the motor. These actually seem nice and tight, but it is extremely dirty. Ton of oil in it. Yeah, it's pretty gross. There's a lot of oil in here too. So there's a lot of oil buildup in here. I mean, that's part of the emission system. That's just how it works. It sends oil and PCV stuff through the intake manifold, and then it tries to burn it through again. But there's quite a bit of oil in here. So we're gonna clean this up. And even on this guy, you can see that there's oil just dripping off of it. This thing too. So I guess not too crazy for a 30-year-old car, but still pretty disgusting nonetheless. We're back from the new year, so here we are making our first video here for the new year. So this is the NSX intake manifold. So we're making a couple changes. The other day we blocked off the EGR stuff, and today we're actually going to be blocking off the idle valve stuff. So on this car there's two idle valves. This one's the electronically controlled one, like most common Hondas, and then this one is a mechanical controlled one which has coolant running through it. We're gonna go ahead and block off all these. Now the reason is that, believe it or not, I can't get this O-ring. The oval shaped O-ring here for the idle valve, we're just gonna completely block it off. Now here's the blower itself. On the NSX, this is actually the factory NSX gasket thing here, and so we're going to actually make an adapter for a Ford style throttle body. Now the reason is that, one, this will get rid of the factory throttle body, and this car is drive-by cable. So like I think 95 up NSXs went drive-by-wire. This car still drive-by-cable. So we're gonna basically try to figure out how to either A, make an adapter, or completely weld to this flange to make a Ford adapter. Now, so what that's going to do is, one, give us access to readily available throttle bodies in various different sizes. It'll switch us over to a Ford TPS, which is readily available everywhere, and not to mention the Ford idle valve, which is again available everywhere. So and hopefully that'll clean it up. So the only things that we have to be concerned about is the actual throttle cable itself, but I think we're going to be okay. So this may or may not be the right throttle body. We've actually got a BBK throttle body coming in, but hopefully we're basically just going to use this one for mock-up, and it should be pretty dang close. So we've got the intake manifold back. We capped off the idle control valves. This one we actually welded completely shut, but I tapped this for 6 a.m. And the reason I did that was just in case the idle control valve doesn't work on the throttle body side, and we would still have an option to remote mount it. So if it does work out, then it's as simple as just putting a plug into it. Obviously, with the intake manifold in the car, it would be virtually impossible to tap this. So we went ahead and tap it. It'll be easier to put a plug in it if we need to, though. So that's done. So here's the BBK 4 throttle body. As you can see, we've got the connector here for the TPS, and then here's the auto air control valve that sits on top of the auto valve. So the only thing that we'll have to figure out is how we're going to modify this throttle cable to work, but that shouldn't be too hard. And this one, I believe, is a 70mm unit. This is just a generic throttle body that we have laying around. It is a Ford flange one, but we don't use this one. This is actually adapted for a Toyota TPS, and they don't seal very well, to be honest with you, but they're handy to have for mock-up. So as you can see, the plate is already matched up. You can see it's all welded up. The adapter plate is all welded into it, so that should be that. So here's the SOS IAB delete plate. I think it sits like that. So it obviously is a perfect match. And so we'll be getting rid of these little butterfly things. So according to SOS, these screws are known for backing out and falling into the motor. On this one though, it's actually nice and tight, so not too concerned about it. But I'm sure that this would probably help the supercharger, you know, hopefully. But, you know, this is more preventative maintenance to get rid of this type of stuff. As you guys can see, the intake manifold is back on. We deleted a couple things. So we made a couple block off plates and welded a hole shut. Remember, again, we're moving to the Ford throttle body and IAC, so we deleted a bunch of stuff. While we were there, we added the Science of Speed, SOS, IAB delete plate, and we ordered a bunch of coolant hoses. These are all the silicone molded hoses and a lot of OEM replacement hoses. We just went ahead and ordered it from SOS. Now, you guys may or may not remember, but we stopped doing our coil wiring. And the reason is because there's an ignition control module that needs to be bypassed for the R8. The problem, I could have hardwired these across, but the problem is that the harness drapes over the top of the intake manifold, and it's designed for you to unplug it so you can lift the intake manifold. So I bought a bunch of I bought a DT connector, and we're going to splice those in line, so that way the next time this intake manifold has to come off, hopefully in 10 years or whatever, whoever has to do it, hopefully not me, can unplug this and then not have to worry about it. So the goal is just to make everything as simple and as factory as humanly possible. So now coming on to the right side of the engine bay, we went ahead, and since we went to Injector Dynamics ID 1050s, they are high impedance injectors, and so the NSX is a low impedance car, and it's got a resistor box here. So also from SOS, we ordered the delete here to delete the injector resistor box as well. And down here, as you can see, this is the pile of stuff that we are just no longer using, all grouped down here. So we've got the IAB, the old air to water, the factory throttle body, all that other stuff. We also did delete a ton of coolant lines. So if you look, both the idle valves have coolant running through them, and so did the throttle body. And the cool thing is that the coolant lines are actually daisy chained. So it starts off from here, it goes into here, from here it jumps over to here, and then back to the motor. So we found a hose that would basically go from this end to the other end of where the throttle body would have been, and then cap that all off, and so that's cleaned it up a lot. Okay, so we got the DT connector on. I was going to record it and set it all up, but really there's nothing special about this. I didn't want to set it up, honestly. We did get really lucky though, because all these colors right here on the DT connectors actually ended up matching perfectly to the NSX. I mean, obviously it's white stripe, but like red to red, yellow, yellow, etc. So I didn't add any sheathing on this at all on either side, and here's the reason why is pretty simple here. It's actually because this white wire is extremely long. So this white wire actually is cylinder number 1, and the factory used this wire for your timing light. So you'd put your timing light on this, and so I didn't want to wrap it all up and then not be able to access it. Not that it's a huge deal with a standalone. You do still have to sync timing, but I figured, you know, and another thing too is that in order for me to actually do that really cleanly, I'd have to strip this all down. So, and I don't know if it's really worth the time or the effort, you know. So this is the final bit for the night before we call it a day. This is the resistor bypass here. So this little 8-pin connector that's just, and really I could have made this, but I really didn't want to deal with it. So we'll go ahead and we'll remove this all together, and that'll free up some space. Hopefully we can mount our flex fuel sensor or wideband or something along those lines with that new added space there. And it's another thing that we can just remove. All right, so the bracket is removed. This thing is just kind of dangling here. So there's I don't know what this was actually for, this holder, but that actually is going to work out pretty good. I think I'm going to move some stuff around, but I should be able to just kind of stick this back onto this little holder here, and then that's going to secure it. And so just like I said, we still have the wideband and the flex fuel sensor that we've got to figure out, and we're going to have to figure out some kind of mounting for it as well. So I think we can probably build a bracket based off of these two holes. That's just like a bent flat plate and we can just mount everything to that. Hope that would be ideal, but we'll see how everything goes. So come Monday, we basically have everything set up there. Really what I would like to do would be to put the supercharger back on, but a part of me wants to actually see if we can get it to run. What we could do is probably bolt the stock throttle body back onto here, throw in the coils and the injectors and everything, plug it all up, and then see if it'll start on the new Haltech ECU. And if all that goes well, then what we can do from there would be to, surprise, surprise, throw the supercharger back on.